Now let's build this stopwatch using useRef. Now this is the final code of how I was able to come up with stopwatch. I already have some button components I already built to save us time. So I'm just going to copy the button component I have here. I'll just take this first one because I think that's all I need. And so because of so we'll see more of our code here. That's this. Yeah. So stop button. I'm going to have a reset button. So we're going to create three functions: one for start, one for stop, and one for reset. Because this is where we'll be implementing useRef. So start, stop. Oh wow! Start, stop, and reset. So now my application won't flag that error anymore. So yeah, we have our start, we have our stop. So I'm gonna give this BG red a deep red, and this is gonna be BG. Should I say black? Let's say black. So call this reset. Yeah, so we have our timer. So now let's talk about use states and use ref and why it's important to use ref for an application like a stopwatch and other examples that we'll talk about. So first of all, now let's just build. For us to execute our timer, we need a state called what? Timer, called timer. So it's going to be, give it an initial count of 0. So it means that our state here is going to be what? Be our timer. Yeah. So now let's say show a count. We use a concept called set interval. So we'll say set interval. So const count is equal to set interval. Correct. So we'll say set timer. So we'll track the previous value. So we'll say previous value plus 1. Then we need to create a stop also and a reset. So a reset, we can also set timer to be 0. Then for stop, we'll say stop is going to be clear interval. Now this interval is a concept already in JavaScript. So we'll say clear interval. So let's say clear interval. Or let's just say, before we get to stop, let's just go. So let's see what we have here. So when I click on start, now our buttons, this button is for start, right? Then stop. This for stop, please. Start. When you click, it links to start, stop, and your reset. So if I click on start, yeah, so we have nothing yet because why? Our state is not working. So how do we track our states? So now let's talk about multiple starts. Now what is a multiple start? So let's say for instance, I want to start this application and I click on this start, right? And I click on stop, right? You see it stopped, reset, it worked fine. So what if I click on start and I click on it on the multiple time? What happens? If I click on stop, it won't stop. Because why? We don't know, we've set two different interval IDs and we don't know which to stop. So this is a problem that we need to solve right now. So this is what we'll do. So I'm going to create const is running. So let's assume we're using state all true. So to set is running. So we're going to set this to be true whenever we're about to start our time. So if I'm trying to say necessities. So if is running, return, else set your interval, then set is running to be true. Else you do this. Let's bring it to the top here. Okay, so set it to be true. Then when you stop, what do you want to do? When you stop, you set your running to be false. Okay, so when we reset, also want to clear our interval and do this. So I'll just bring my stop here, and we have that. So let's see if we'll be able to solve the problem of multiple starts using use state. Okay, so let's go. So I click on start. Okay, I stop. It's working, right? So let's try for multiple starts. Let me reset. Start, start. Let's see if it stops. Okay, it worked. Let's start again. Let's do multiple starts. Let's click multiple times. Okay, that works. We have successfully used useState to be able to run our stopwatch. But why this is not recommendable is because whenever you are using a state to run your application, you see every time we have to set the state, and this causes a rendering of our application. So let's say I have an expensive, let's say there's something, an expensive function API call, yeah, that is depending on my state. Let's say I'm using a useEffect or something. So let's say I mean if API call, let's say okay fine, let's do a useEffect here. Okay, fine. That runs. Let's do a use effect that runs whenever our uh, interval ID changes. Okay, so though I'm not supposed to talk about use effect in this class, but anyway, let's go. Render. So interval ID, right? So you see these are interval ID. So whenever there's a change in interval ID, it should render. So let's see. So you see there's a render whenever there's a change. So let's try this example. Let's change this interval ID to a ref. So what's the syntax for ref? So I'm going to change this to a ref, and it's simple as this. So I'm going to say interval ID, take away the set state because we don't need that anymore. So we'll say use ref. Okay. So same interval ID. So whenever we want to declare this, okay, all right, let's test. So we'll click on start, and we have our render. Click on stop because this is where our interval ID is changing. So let me click on start. So we see it's changing. So let me create another um, ref. Let me just create a ref. Let's introduce ref into the system. So let's say interval ref is equals to use ref any. Say no. Okay. So we want this to render only when interval ref works. So instead of so when we start, instead of us to say interval ID and set, so let's take away anything that concerns interval ID. We'll say interval ref. is equal to this. Okay, so interval ref dot current. So we want to just update our interval ref. So okay, so let's see if we are going to have a rendering when we click on start. So after the first time, so you see there's no rendering on your terminal. There is no rendering on your terminal when we use useRef, and this helps your application to be more lightweighted. All right, but if we're using states, right, we'll see a renderer whenever we try to do a multiple start by a mistake or something, and that can cause a side effect in your application. So let's convert our application using interval ref. So we just take this back to the way it was, take away the use effect because we don't need it, and so we so now we're able to establish that use state causes multiple rendering in your application, and you don't want that, especially when you don't want to see, when you're not concerned about how it display on your UI. So what we'll do is we change this to refs. So we'll convert this to, because the only thing that is displaying on our UI is the time. So anything that is not displaying on our UI, just automatically convert it to ref. So all I'll do is I'll say interval ID, I'll take away the set states. Please pay close attention. So change this to ref. So what do we use interval ID here? So we use interval ID here. So we don't need this anymore. So how do we update your interval ID? This way it happens. We use the word dot current interval ID. We use dot current. Okay. So if you want to clear, we say interval ID dot current. So let me give you a 3 minutes break. Let me see if you can be able to convert this is running to uh, to a ref. Back from a 3 minutes break. So this is what I'll do to convert my is running to a ref. Same thing, take away the set state. We don't need that anymore. So it's going to be what? Use ref force, right? So is running. So if it's running dot current, okay, return else. So say is running dot current is equal to true, and when you clear interval is running dot current is equal to false. Okay, and this is how we are able to create a smooth timer and create less rendering in our application. So like that, my application starts without any rendering on our terminal, and we stop at the appropriate time, we reset, and this is how we were able to get the smooth stopwatch application um, at the beginning of this video. So if you learned a lot, I want to drop your comments in the sections and areas that you think we need to improve on and maybe give you clarity on. And if you need any questions, you can have any questions, you can drop it on the comment section while um, you go through this. I believe this has been able to explain use state as useRef as a beginner to React for you. Thank you so much and see you next time.